Go ahead.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's become.
Been having fun in the park? Yeah. Everybody, yeah? Good? You hit the trail, you did some hiking?
Just this trail.
Oh, just this
and
one?
waiting for these two.
Oh, of course. Will you go see the rest of the park later?
Yeah.
Yes,
After,
local
yeah.
tomorrow or later today?
After these two.
Awesome. Very good. How about you guys? Having fun?
Yeah, we're really sunburned.
Yeah.
We had a cup of tea.
We've been
Oh,
out
cool.
for
How
a few
was it?
hours, yeah.
Yeah?
That was nice, yeah. It was a little sketchy with the clouds rolling in, but
Oh, yeah, because you didn't know if we were going to get thunder or
Yeah.
lightning, rather. Yeah.
we had a good window though.
Oh, good. Glad to hear it.
Yep. Hiking as well.
Nice.
Yep. Stella Lake.
What trail? Oh, Stella, I love that. Who doesn't love Stella Lake?
Yeah.
All right. Did we get everybody gathered? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Perfect. Okay, so we got a little bit of information before we go in. Really curious, first of all, though, who's ever been in a cave before? A cave like ours with some very beautiful cave formations. Anybody? Quite a few of you, yeah. So I find that to usually be the case, which is very interesting to me. How much humans love caves, right? Once you've been in one, you want to come back to the next one. What is this? What is our attraction to these caves?
Stalactites and stalagmites.
Those cave formations are beautiful, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a lot of beauty in the world, but caves offer this opportunity to experience something that I think a lot of us will agree is kind of otherworldly, right? It's something that is very specific and only exists because of the sheltering environment of the cave itself. And I like to think of Lehman Caves and caves like it as a sanctuary. It's a sanctuary for the geological processes that have created this beauty that we're about to see, but it's also a sanctuary for the biology in there. There's a thriving ecosystem in there, as well as the human experience that has been in this cave. So we're going to have a really short time in there, but it's going to be beautiful, and we're going to kind of learn a lot of all those areas of the cave. But before we can go in, there are a couple of rules that you haven't been told yet. I know you've been told a whole bunch of things already, and that's great. We saved the best for the last. The most important cave rule is, now I'm thinking, should I really be ranking these rules? No, but an important cave rule, maybe it is the most important cave rule, don't touch the cave. Those of you who raised your hands and said you've been in another cave before, you guys are probably familiar with this rule, right? Yeah, so these formations are still forming. The cave may be millions of years old, but it's not done. It's a changing, growing thing. And we humans have been touring this cave since 1885. In more recent years, there are upwards of 30,000 people a year who come into Lehman Cave. So it's super important that we follow this rule because our impact in there is already really high. Hopefully it's worth it though. Lehman Caves is a little bit of a sacrifice, I guess, in terms of human impact. But hopefully we learn to appreciate and understand these environments better, and we carry that appreciation around with us as we go through the world enjoying it, right? So our first stroll through the cave is going to be single file. We have a couple of spaces where we're going to gather in and we can stop and talk and look around. But the first part, there's a tunnel right here behind this door, and then behind the tunnel is the cave itself, and it's single file. So I want to give you a little sense of what to look for, since I'll be at the front of the group and you guys, I can't stop and talk to everybody when we're single file. So we're going to be walking underneath the natural entrance to the cave. So obviously that is not a natural entrance, right? That tunnel was created in early 1930s, 1932, 33, I think they finished it. But the person who discovered this crack in the ground and started taking people on tours through Lehman Caves, he discovered it, Absalom Lehman, in 1885. So between 1885 and 1933, the only way into this cave was through the natural entrance. And the natural entrance, as I said, is a crack in the ground, and we're going to go underneath it, but you won't be able to see the sky through this crack in the ground because it's kind of sinewy and curved in there, right? But you will be able to see a little bit of light coming from somewhere off to the side. So I'm going to stop at the natural entrance and I'm going to point up, and then you guys who are near me can point to the next people behind you so that everybody takes a look. Because it's kind of cool to consider how all these people climbed down. They had rope. You certainly needed ropes and different iterations of ladders to get down from the natural entrance. But also, there are bats living up there. So right where that spot of light is right now, and they move around. They weren't there all season. But there's a little clump of black, and those are the bats. So there are more bats in there than that little clump, but that little clump just happens to be right there, easy to see. So don't shine your lights on them. They already, for some reason, have chosen that spot. We can talk more about them when we're in the cave. But so look for the bats when you pass by, and then that first opening on your right is followed by another opening that is connected to the first opening. You can't see light through the second opening. But that second opening is actually where people climbed down through. And you'll be able to tell that because there's an old wooden stairway in there, a stairway that was left in there from before this tunnel existed. So there were a lot of iterations of tours going through these caves and lots of structures that people dragged in to make it easier and safer. But the one that we left is still sitting right there in that natural entrance. So you can look for those things as you walk by, and the reason I'm giving you so much detail right now is because I ask that as we do this first walk, that you do it silently. Two reasons. One, we want to lessen our impact on the bats that live there, but two, the native people that live here would like to, have asked us to respect their previous use of this cave by passing through underneath that natural entrance silently. So we do that for two reasons, and then we're going to gather in that first space. It's called the Gothic Palace, and we can talk a little bit more about the geology in Lehman Caves. So that's your preview. Do you guys have any burning, pressing questions before you get in there? Yeah.
What kind of bats are they?
Oh, they are called Townsend's big-eared bats. Yeah, and I'll give you a little more info on them once we get in there. But I want to count you as you walk through this door. I know I just counted you. It's just the thing we do because we have to make sure that we go in and come out with the exact same number of people, especially on the 4:30 tour, because you know what happens after 4:30. The lights go off, everything gets locked up. So I'm going to be counting a lot, and there's a tunnel behind this door, so you guys can wait in the tunnel while I count you at the door. Okay? All right. Let's get going. We're nice and
Hamza, you're gonna want to wear this. Hamza.
Thanks, everybody. Did I smack you with my flashlight, everybody? So we got that. Give me 1 second here. I've been wearing this mask in the cave since I do this so often with so many people. And there's no ventilation in there. Well, except for that natural entrance. Let's see if there's anything else you need to know. I don't think so. Yeah, just remember to look for all those things. See you in there. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome, everybody, to Lehman Caves. This space is called the Gothic Palace. It's one of the bigger and more beautiful spaces in the cave, but all of the cave is similar to this. It's all following a crack in the ground that existed somewhere over 2 to 10 million years ago, when this was solid rock. Before we had all this beauty in here, all these cave formations, we had solid rock, and this cave had to get hollowed out, right, for this to occur. And that happened somewhere between 2 and 10 million years ago in this rock, which is marble. It's a low-grade marble, meaning it's not so highly compressed that it's made of beautiful marble that people want to take out and make countertops out of, but it's still marble. And at some point in the cave's history, there was water that seeped up from below and filled the cracks and began to dissolve away the marble. That water was slightly acidic, it had some sulfuric acid in it, and it began to dissolve away the marble, and over time, the water subsided and left these spaces that then were able to fill in over the millions of years that followed with these cave formations. So the pathways that we're walking, definitely after Absalom Lehman poked his head into that natural entrance and found this cave and said, oh my goodness, I can make a lot of money off of that. He had to take a sledgehammer to some of these structures to really make it walkable and passable. But it does follow a natural crack in the ground. So this feeling of kind of being just this perfect walkway is sort of a combination of the fact that Absalom Lehman and his team had to make some space for us, but also that there was this natural crack that kind of started it all off. And those cracks continue to be an important factor in what we see here. If you look up, do you see how our stalactites, which are those cave structures that hang down, right, like icicle shapes, they most often will follow cracks in the rock. So you'll see I'm pointing to a line of stalactites. Why are they in a line? Well, there's a crack there. And that very same crack is the crack that's made this space where we're standing, right? And as we go through, you'll see more and more of that, how most of the stalactites follow cracks. There's some seepage that occurs as well. There's all kinds of different structures in here, and they're formed by different ways that water comes through the rock. So the water that's coming into the cave now, obviously it's a different water event than the one that created the cave millions of years ago. But you have to imagine up above us, there's about 100 feet of rock, and then above that rock is the dirt, the soil, the trees, right, sky, and of course the weather and the precipitation. So that's the water that's been coming down for millions of years to create these formations. When the water up and out in the world seeps through the dirt, it does get a little bit acidic, and then it seeps through the rock, and it too dissolves the rock. And so the water that ends up in this cave is full of that dissolved those dissolved minerals that the rock was made up of, calcium carbonate. So these drips and drops come in, and this part of the cave, today it's a pretty dry part of the cave. You might think, no, there's not really any water in here. There's not a lot of water right here in the Gothic Palace today, but there is some, right? Even though we're in a dry period of the caves of the Gothic Palace, you can see this water, and do you see the mineral spots on the ground, right? So this floor was put in probably in 1970, and thousands of people are walking on it, but still you can see almost the beginning of a stalagmite building up. The stalagmites are the ones that grow up from the bottom, right? So those minerals, they come into the cave, and there's a chemical reaction that occurs when the minerals in the water get a chance to interact with the atmosphere in the cave. They solidify. And as we go through the cave, we'll take a close look at some of those drips and drops and see that process happening of the stalactites forming around a drop of water. So that is millions and millions of years of that process occurring. Like I said, the stalactites dripping from above and the stalagmites from below. There are other cave formations that we'll look at too, but that is the condensed version of how all this came to be. And we've got one more space to travel into. And as we walk, feel free to plant your feet for a moment and take your photos, because I know that there's a lot of you are taking pictures, and I encourage that, of course, but I don't want anybody to feel that they have to rush and walk and snap, and that's when people trip. So, okay, so follow me into the next space and take a minute to look around and take a photo if you want.
Hey, Hamza, I want you to get a picture up here. Follow it.
Come on.
I want you to follow the ranger. Follow the ranger. Yeah, go that way. Follow the ranger. Okay. Hamza, stand there. Stand there. Ready? I think I need to get closer.
Here's just the one spot of the tour where you have to watch your head, so pass that information along to the top of the people going in your head.
Oh, Hamza, look at this here. Wow, that's so cool.
Got it? All right, if you guys want to scooch a little bit more so the people coming through the little entrance can do so.
Hamza, get up.
Okay, thanks. All right, everybody, welcome to this space that we've called it the Rose Trellis Room. One of the things I found so interesting when I first came into Lehman Caves, and I guess this is typical for a lot of the caves that are well known and well visited, is the spaces in them are called rooms, which to me is so odd, right? Because a room is something that humans have constructed, whereas this is just a natural space, right? So, but it also indicates how much we love our caves and how much time we spend in them, that we name them the things like the Rose Trellis Room. So this structure here, I guess, looks to the early visitors as a trellis for roses, and then these little bumps, I guess, were supposed to be the roses. So that's how we get our name, the Rose Trellis Room. Here in this room, there are some drops of water that you can see at eye level, which kind of helps you comprehend and understand how this process is all happening, right? This is a great example of a drop of water that has a shell of calcite forming around it. And that's happening all over the place, but it can only happen because of the sheltering environment of this cave, right? There's no wind down here, there's no sun to evaporate that drop of water, it hangs there seemingly forever, and it's that length of time that the water can hang on that allows for that chemical reaction to occur, and then for the stalactites to slowly grow. And so in that way, Lehman Caves is a sanctuary for these geological processes, as well as for all the animals that live in here. We only saw the bats, we probably will only see the bats, but there is a thriving ecosystem in here, mostly very small insects. Some rodents too, though. Did you guys see the bats by any chance, by the way?
Yes.
Yeah, so when you go back through the natural, we're not going back through the natural entrance, that would be fun, but no, we're going back through the tunnel. When you go back past the natural entrance, look up again to that lighted spot and pause and look for a little dark spot on the ceiling there, on the white rock. And that dark spot is a patch of bats. So the bats, you were asking, right? The bats that live in here are Townsend's big-eared bats, and while they are a hibernating species, they're not hibernating in Lehman caves. It's not hibernation time right now, right? What those bats are doing is they are using Lehman caves as a nursery. So it's all female bats and their pups. They come in the summertime, and this is where they raise their little bat babies. And then in the winter, when it's time to hibernate, they find other caves. So animals, as you guys probably know, require very specific conditions, and sometimes only they understand what those conditions are. So for whatever reasons, Lehman Cave seems to be a great cave for raising pups in the summer, and not the one they chose for hibernating throughout the winter, which is fine. But up at the top of that natural entrance now, we have a cover. I don't know if anybody's taken that walk that goes over Lehman Caves, but there is a cage where the bats can fly in and out, and humans cannot come in. And that natural entrance was originally sealed off completely by the Park Service in the 50s because there had been quite a bit of destruction in Lehman Cave. So one of you guys were noticing, well, this stalactite is flat bottomed, right? It's just right there, it is, right there. Mm-hmm. But if you start looking around, you'll see almost all of them are flat bottomed. Mm-hmm. Take a look. They're not as perfectly flat as this one because the calcium carbonate, the calcite, has started to kind of overgrow where they have been snapped off. But between 1885 and at least the 1920s, when this cave became under the jurisdiction of the the Forest Service, people would scamper down that natural entrance on their own accord and take souvenirs. Mm. And so the Park Service finally decided, we really kind of have to protect it, and they sealed off the natural entrance. Fully sealed off. And then the bats couldn't come and go, the rats couldn't come and go. It took them a long time to figure out you could put a cage over it and let some of the animals in. At any rate, so you can see all of this evidence of human experience in the cave, but it's also an interesting opportunity to observe how quickly these stalactites grow. If you look at the bottom of some of these flat stalactites, there's anywhere between, about an inch up to maybe 2 inches, right, of this really thin soda straw structure is what we call it, that hollow, uniform shape. It takes about 100 years for about an inch or 2 to grow. So you can see all of these stalactites were snapped off about 100 years ago. And that's how much has grown on them since that time. So it's definitely still growing, as I said, and it's sort of an interesting juxtaposition of our understanding of time. On the one hand, these large structures have taken millions of years to grow. We know the cave has been around for anywhere between 2 and 10 million years, and these massive structures definitely would require more time than 100 years. But on the other hand, we see this calcite forming on top of things in the cave, like just, as the months progress through the season even, you can see it happening. So it's kind of an interesting process that can happen quickly and slowly all at the same time. All right, do you guys have questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does the temperature inside the cave fluctuate much?
Not much, about 50 degrees, maybe up to 52. I think with all the tours we do, yeah. Because it's so far underground, it's perfectly insulated. So when it's really hot outside, when it's really cold outside, it's still just a great place to be. Which of course is why the animals love it and why the people love it. Yeah.
Well, this is amazing.
Very cool. So, yeah. What else in here can we see that's pretty cool? Sometimes you see bats up here. Here you can see a really prominent crack as well. There are other cave structures besides stalagmites and stalactites. One type of cave structure that Lehman Caves is well known for and unique for is this thing called a cave shield. Now in these two rooms, we have a couple of them. There's one right here. You cannot tell it's really shield shaped unless you're way over here. And on this side, you can see this rounded structure here. And there's a couple in the Gothic palace. I will point them out to you again when we go back. But Lehman Caves has about 400 or so of these cave shields. And what's interesting about them is that geologists aren't entirely sure how they form. But one hypothesis is that it starts off with water seeping through the rock instead of dripping through a crack. And so you can imagine, like, if you had a leak in your roof, and then you went into your house and you looked at the ceiling and you saw a mineral spot after it all dried up. If you can imagine that happening for millions and millions of years, and then suddenly you've got this big mineral plate that's stuck to the ceiling. But then they tend to pull away from the ceiling, as this one has done, right? And that's the part that no one's exactly sure how it happens. But one hypothesis is that we know there's this process that happens in these caves, not just Lehman caves, but all of the limestone and marble caves with these calcite structures, where the high carbon dioxide level in these caves, and it's naturally high. It's not just us adding carbon dioxide, but that contributes. But that actually corrodes the structures. So while the structures are being built by the dripping water, at the same time they're being corroded by the atmosphere. And so the hypothesis is that the shields are corroded away from the surface on which they had formed. But before you leave the rose trellis room, you might kind of loop all the way around and take a look at that cave shield. Now this one probably had gorgeous stalactites coming all the way down to the ground. There's a couple farther into the cave that have, you can see they're completely connected to the ground. They're really pretty. But yeah, so that's just one other example of a unique thing that happens in here. All
Do you know
right.
why the breaks are flat instead of at an angle?
I think that it's got to have something to do with the structure, the molecular structure or crystal structure of the calcite itself. I'm not sure how they broke them off, but I would guess if you took like a hammer to it, it would just break like a piece of glass. They do, the cave formations, they kind of just feel like rock. Like there's a lot of pieces of the cave that are outside of the cave since all this stuff has been broken off, and sometimes I even bring the piece so people can hold it and pass it around. It just feels like a rock. So why is it flat? Yeah, it's got to have to do with the structure of the rock itself. Yeah. All right, so we are going to make our way back out to the Gothic Palace. And in the palace, we can look at some more cave shields. And then also right before we go, we can do a blackout. You guys interested in that? Yeah. Okay. So watch your head here as you pass the seat.
When you're ready, Rosa. Go ahead.
That one back there is another shield, that round structure.
It's a pig. That's a big shield.
Right.
Do you like the cave?
It's beautiful.
Do you think so? I think so too.
How far does it go? Or how far has it been explored?
There's about 2.5 miles of pathway basically, and it's
Okay.
all been explored. It's a pretty small cave compared
Yeah.
to,
Yeah.
other caves that people tend to go visit in our country and in our national
Yeah.
park system. There's some massive caves. But
Yeah.
this
So I have
one's-
a question.
Yeah.
How do you change the light bulbs without hurting the
Oh, that is such a
stalactites?
good question. So although we are not allowed to go climbing around up there, the biologists, the anthropologists, and the electricians do actually touch the cave.
Okay.
So they just do it carefully. Yeah,
I wonder, how could you possibly get back in there?
that's a really good question. All right, you guys, let's, are we all coming? If we're gonna have time for the blackout, we should gather. Thank you. Come on in. So find a spot where you're comfortable standing for a minute. Sometimes in the dark, people's sense of balance is not the best, but that's really been a problem. And I'm gonna hand somebody a flashlight, or you've got a flashlight in your hand, but you want, oh no, that's a camera.
It's a
right.
camera.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 20. Okay, so I'm gonna come back and then we'll turn our lights off, okay? I gotta get the cave lights off. And while we stand here in the dark, consider the millions of years. Oh, before I say that, right, so my watch glows, your phones glow. Take a moment to think about if things are off and hidden. So consider the millions of years that Lehman Caves has been developing in the perfect darkness, in the perfect stillness, in the perfect silence, without any input from us until quite recently. So just a little bit like that.
Look at my shirt. My shirt's glowing.
That's because I think there's a light over there.
Yeah,
We
right?
haven't been able to, oh, it's a glow in the dark.
It's a glow in the dark shirt.
Yes, so you guys on the other side of me can see a glow from the opening. Now, aside from our own lights, even that glow from the opening does not provide enough light for the human eye to ever adjust to. So if you had come down here during Lehman's time and dropped your candle, your lantern, that'd be that. It would be dark. You'd be feeling your way out. If you were farther into the cave, there'd be no way you'd find that opening. So as the story goes, Lehman gave the people he sold the first tickets to, he gave them a candle and his 24-hour guarantee, which meant if you didn't come back out of that crack in the ground in 24 hours, then he'd come back in looking for you. So that's how all this started. Certainly he was not the first person to find the cave or to enter the cave, but he was just the first person to start this whole process of touring. All right, you guys, I think we've gone a little bit over as it is, so we're gonna head back out.
Wasn't this also a casino?
Yeah, there was so much going on in here, I wouldn't be surprised. No, I haven't heard casino. I've heard speakeasy in the 20s.
Right.
I've heard lots of like Elks Lodge meetings and Boy Scout troops and parties.
Right.
So would they have also maybe gambled? Sure. All right, so I'm gonna turn this. No, actually, do you guys want to walk out in the dark? Do you have enough flashlights? Yeah. With that light, if you would be at the end of the group and shine it forward for the people walking in front of you. Is there anybody else with a light? Is willing to use
I've got
it?
one.
Okay, yeah. Very good.
Wow.
You want to be the
I'll meet you
holder?
in the tunnel. That's where I'll count you out one more time. You ready? You don't need too much.
How many lumens are they?
Okay.
Okay, wait.
How many lumens?
650.
We gotta look for the bats this time. I missed the bats. Can you look for the bats? I didn't see them the last time when we came through here. I don't think so. I think it was in this entrance up here. No, you have to look way up. The sauna. I didn't see a bat. Hey, not people's faces. Down. The flashlight down. If you're not gonna hold the flashlight right, I'm gonna take it from you. No, you're holding it in the people's faces.
Oh yeah. There's a bed.
I'm the last one, I think.
Nice. You're 20, so if you think you're last, and I know you're last. All right, everybody, we are all accounted for. Thank you so much for enjoying Lehman Caves with me at the end of my day. Yeah, wonderful group. And have fun with the rest of your
That door moved by itself, Hamza. Hamza, that door moved by itself. Yeah! There's a ghost. That door moved by itself. Where's the ghost coming? Hamza, we gotta get out of here. I see it coming. I see it coming. We gotta go. Quick, quick. Oh my God.
Not really. Any earthquake we've had that's shaken anything loose in there is already shaken it loose. So, yeah.
Why is it closed in winter?
Why is it closed? No, we actually do tour it in the winter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was 2020, I think we did because of COVID.
Huh? Oh,
But the park is open and you can still buy tickets.
okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Can I get the ice cream now?
It's closed.
Are you sure?
Yeah.